Man, StreamYard is so cool.
And welcome everybody to the Cave Podcast. It's your boy Jerezy. We got Danny, Andrew, and a special guest with us tonight for you.
Today our guest is an expert in communications. He's a communication coach and founder of the YouTube channel MasterTalk. Welcome, Brenden. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, it's
What's
great to
up,
be here.
Brenden?
Great to be here, Andrew, Danny, Jerezy.
Hey.
Yeah, so in the beginning we made Brenden guess which one is Danny and which one's Andrew, and we told him we wouldn't disclose it up until the end. But red shirt is Danny. we'll be cool.
We'll be fair.
We'll be cool, right?
And on point, yeah, you guessed it. He is.
Yeah,
an
you can
Andrew.
tell I'm an Andrew.
Yeah.
You definitely look like an Andrew, for sure.
Oh,
That's wholesome.
You do look like an Andrew.
Now I take offense to that.
I take
That's what's up. That's funny. So Brenden from MasterTalk. MasterTalk, looking into your channel, is a social skill developmental channel. I would say. Would you agree with that?
You got it, Jerezy.
Perfect. So go ahead and tell the listeners what the channel is about and what got you started into this journey.
Yeah, for sure, Jerezy. Happy to go into that. So the origin story, guys, was when I was in college. I went to business school, and I had no aspirations to be a YouTuber or to make content or to be an entrepreneur. So I actually studied accounting, funny enough, out of all the things I could have been doing. And then when I was studying in business school, I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age were playing rugby or baseball or basketball. I wasn't one of those guys. I did presentations competitively, and that's how I learned how to speak. But then as I got older, I started coaching a lot of the students on how to communicate, mostly for free back then. And that's what actually gave me the idea for MasterTalk, because I realized no one was really sharing this information for free for folks. And here we are today.
Awesome. And a lot of people aren't aware that the social aspect or the being able to present yourself is a skill that they lack up until, they have to make a presentation or they have a, at the time when I was at school, we used to have these verbal, it's almost like a verbal test where the professors grill you, It's like an oral practicum is what they used to call them. And man, that's when you saw the people who could get away with oral practicums because of their social skills. And you saw the people who did the research, who did the homework, but just wasn't able to put it together to present it orally. So was it easy for you to find people to work with and help with? I mean, I'd assume that wouldn't be a thing that people come and realize about themselves up until it's exposed, right? So how does that go?
Yeah, for sure, man. Great question. So essentially what happened with me is in that case competition program, think of it like Nerdland. So all 80 of those people were super obsessed with presentations. So that's where I learned all of the communication. So those 80 people were actually my first 80 subscribers to the YouTube channel. And then we started sharing it with past delegates. And that was this is why I always say for content creation, you always got to win local before you expand. Because the people who already know you are the ones who are the most likely to watch your stuff because they have a personal connection to you, right? But then after what happened, but I didn't really have a business, right? I was just making videos. I was working at IBM as a consultant. That was my day job back then anyways. So I never thought this would be a business. But then after a few months, as I was making more videos just to help people out, a lot of executives and CEOs reached out for coaching. And I was like, oh, so those people are actually willing to pay me to actually be a coach. And that's when I realized that there was a business that I could do, and I could actually spend my whole life just doing this. And that's what happened with the transition.
That's awesome. Man, a little under the weather, but we're here. And is this something that you went into not knowing that you would be this deep into? I mean, right now would you say if this was a sport, What season would you be on already?
That's a good question, man. I mean, at this point now I'm pretty deep into it. Like now it's all that I want to do with my life. But if you had told me like at 19 that I was gonna quit my job that I spent so many years trying to get, and then after that just be doing this full time, like I would have said you're crazy. And that's exactly what ended up happening, because I was working my day job and life was great, but I was just like, is this the point to life? Is this all I should be doing? And I just realized that I should be spending more time doing this.
Hell yeah.
Very cool. And as you've gone with your journey, as far as your business goes, has it opened up other channels or other avenues of, other than just coaching? And coaching in front of people, have you changed up your methods? Are you offering others services, I guess you could say, or are you solely doing communications coaching?
Yeah, for sure, man. So what I would say is, think of me like a mad scientist. So when I was 19 and I was kind of coaching people, I had no idea what I was doing, right? And the reason was because I didn't have any money. My parents were factory workers. So I was just making a bunch of mistakes as I was coaching people. But because it was all coming from me, I was able to create new insights. So for me, the big mission, yeah, sure, I coach a lot of people and that's great. But I think the big mission for me is I want to help every human being on earth become a great communicator. That's really my dream, because communication impacts all of us, right? That's why I don't make any money off the YouTube channel. Actually, I lose a ton of money making YouTube content for people, because I have to write a big check for my production team to make those videos all fancy and stuff. So I actually lose a bunch of money. But the reason I do that is because nobody else is doing that. Like nobody else is really sharing free content, especially in our age group, like in 20s, 30s range. So I thought if I could be that person, after I'm gone, maybe like 100 years or 50 years or something, people can still keep listening to those videos and learn from me. Whereas, when Dale Carnegie was alive, the author of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he was like the guru of communication like 100 years ago. But like nobody knows how he talks, because there wasn't a podcast, there wasn't a YouTube, there wasn't any videos of him speaking. So yeah, that's what motivated me to keep going.
Yeah, when you talk about when you say Dale Carnegie, all I think about is as far as the voice put into the name, I think about all the audiobooks I listen to on YouTube, and for some reason I associate that voice with his name. But yeah, you're right. Interestingly enough, we don't know how these great authors sound and how they actually spoke conversation-wise. But I feel like right now, more than ever, people are more aware, like I said, about their social skills or lack of social skills. So how interesting was it? And I'm sure throughout your quote unquote seasons, your clients have varied from, I would assume in the beginning, it was your so-called nerds that were trying to get better at presentations. And I'm assuming that it ventured off to like more business mindseted people. So was that interesting? What's the most odd field practitioner that came over to ask for some social skills or help for some social skills with their social skill set?
For sure, man. Great question. I would say what I learned really early, guys, is like there's a very big difference between the person who watches my videos and who invests in coaching. It's actually the polar opposite. And the reason is because the person, let's say, who binges all my YouTube videos, they have a lot of time and not a lot of money, which is why the YouTube channel is perfect for them. So they'll sit there and they'll watch all the videos and learn. Whereas the person who has money, they might watch one or two videos for credibility. They go, oh, okay, this kid's good, but I'd rather just hire him directly. And then they would just pay to have access to be kind of like a personal trainer. Like you go watch YouTube videos online, which is super useful. Like I do it all the time. But if you have a personal trainer, you don't really have to watch the YouTube videos. You just listen to them every day and they just tell you what to do. So it saves you time. So then the next part was, okay, so who's going to pay? Because it wasn't actually the university students. It's because I made like a total of $0.00 with them, except maybe a $25 Uber gift card or something here and there. But that's also fine, right? Because that was my mission, and it still is. So I had to pivot. So what ended up working actually was corporate executives. That's who most of my clients are. And the main reason is because they don't actually have to pay for the service. So they'll swipe their Amex card from their company, and their company will just pay to hire me. And that's what actually makes the process really simple. That's one. Entrepreneurs are actually a pretty good clientele. Usually people are already successful. And the third one are like coaches, but not communication coaches, like career coaches, life coaches. That's what I found. In terms of the weirdest client I've had, I usually try and avoid weird people when it comes to clients because it takes a lot of energy to coach people. But what I would say is, but usually a lot of the people I coach are tech CEOs, so they're super introverted. They're very sciencey, so you don't really understand what they say when they talk about their business. Kind of makes no sense, and I have to ask them a bunch of questions that sound like I'm an elementary school kid to understand what they're actually building, and then help them build the pitch.
Right, man. What a lake to throw what a body of water to throw your hook and bait into, man. Those are like the top sharks. That's perfect. That's the perfect client set. I feel like
that is. No, a question I had is: are a lot of your clients, are they specifically looking to improve their communications, or is it just because their job is asking them to take this course, or they're moving up in management and it's like, well, I'm moving up, I need to take this, or else I don't,
like a workshop type thing.
Yeah. Or is it majority of them like, hey, I'm really, I want to invest in the way I communicate, so that way my point comes across in an effective manner. What do you think? It's the percentage or the ratio of that.
Yeah, great question, Danny. Yeah, what I would say is the answer is actually both. So some people they're forced to do it, and other people it's more, I really want to do this, and they actually invest it. And the reason is because, think about it, guys. Life, and this is a good lesson for people listening, is it doesn't really matter what you sell in a business. The way that people value it will be different. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we take a Louis Vuitton bag. So to somebody like me, a Louis Vuitton bag isn't worth anything. It's like, why would I spend $1,500 on a Louis? Like, it doesn't make sense. But to the high net worth individual who already has a ton of money, for them, the Louis bag is worth more than $1,500. Why? Because the status symbol that will create with their girlfriends is worth way more than what the price of the bag is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with like a Patek Philippe or like a Rolex watch. So what are those, like 40,000, 50,000? So to me, it's like, why would I spend 40 grand on that? Makes no sense. Mm-hmm. But to the person who's super wealthy and super successful, it's a status symbol to show their friends that, hey, I'm actually worth something, because that's how they measure status. Not all of them, but a good amount of them. So it's all about the value. So let's go back to the communication coaching. How does that now apply to that? So for the executive that you talked about, the first one who really wants to invest, they see the value because they go, if I spend a few thousand on a coach and I'm a VP at a company, let's say they're making 150 grand a year, and I become an SVP, I'll make 175 grand a year, as an example. It's probably more, but let's just use that as a placeholder. So if I spend 3 grand to make an extra 25K a year, I'll spend that money any day of the week. So that's really the key. So that's the brain that they have. That's the mindset. But then there's other executives who are making way more, but are super cheap. They're like, I don't need this. I didn't get better. And they're really close-minded. So those people aren't really good clients. So me personally, the model I've chosen, there's other coaches who do it differently. Like there's other coaches in my space who do B2B. So that means they'll sell directly to the company and just coach whoever's there. I'm not like that. I'm a lot more selective. So for me, it's really people who want this. I don't want to force anyone to do coaching with me. It's just super draining. I tried that at the beginning and I was making good money, but I just hated it. I'd rather just be on a podcast with you guys at like 9:47 and just chill and coach people I actually like. That's just the model that I chose. And yeah, that's the way I've approached it, because I want to help a lot more people. I don't want to just for money do this. I was doing that at my old corporate job. I should have just stayed there if I didn't want to do this because I liked it. Yeah.
Right.
What are some of the applications of your clients? Like, are they trying to hold some cool keynotes like Tim Cook would, or are they trying to just like have better presentations during like some kind of executive meeting or something like that? What are some of the things that they've been using from the things they learned from you?
For sure, Andrew. What I would say is the answer is actually all. So really depend on who is the client. So for the technology CEO, they'll need it when they're raising money. So let's say they're doing like a Y Combinator. They're like giving a demo day pitch in front of a bunch of investors. So they actually want to get on the stage. For other people, it's more of, hey, I want to do better in my job interviews. I want to do better at work. I want to do better in my boardroom meetings. But for the coach, it's the way they lead their clients. So like, for example, some coaches will hire me to do better on podcasts. It's like, how do I guest on a podcast and not sound like like this, right? Whenever they're being asked questions. So that's another thing that I help them with. So the problem always differs, Andrew, but the solution is always the same. So the context is different, but the solution is the same. So that's the way that I would approach it.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, I was creeping on your profile earlier, and I noticed that you were followed by Speako. Are you familiar with those guys?
I think they're like an AI app, right?
Yeah, I actually tried using. I did like a trial on one of those a while back. It was pretty interesting. Basically, it just makes you. I think they just make you read something for a little bit, and they make you read something for like a passage out of a book, or they make you explain something the best you can within a few minutes, and then they analyze what you're saying. And I thought that was pretty helpful. It was telling me like, oh, you throw out too many technical terms the common man doesn't know about. You stuttered quite a lot, and I thought that was pretty useful. I actually wish I knew speaking coaches existed. So what you're doing is pretty cool, man.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know what? I was always curious about. I would fall under that category of, instead of taking the next step and hiring a coach or working with a coach, I would just binge on the YouTube videos 24/7. But I know everything already. Or if I need a little refresher, I have YouTube Premium, so I have that shit downloaded and saved, ready to go.
I got it too, yeah.
But I'm sure there's a drastic difference between that experience and actually working with a coach. So what would you say some of those differences are?
Yeah, for sure, brother. Here's what I would say. Let me start with this. I think it's great, for people who are watching a bunch of my YouTube videos. So if you end up watching 100 of my videos and that's how you learn, dude, mazel tov, man. I'm happy for you. That's great, right? That's, by the way, that was me. Like 6-7 years ago, I was poor. Like, I'm not saying you're poor. I'm saying like I was super broke. Like in the sense that I didn't have money for a coach. I barely had money in my bank account because my parents were factory workers. So I couldn't hire one. So most of my time was actually spent on YouTube and learning. But I think what I would say is what coaches do is they speed up time, right? So what happens is, let's say we go on YouTube, there's a lot of time that we're spending watching these videos. Whereas when you hire a coach, they just go, forget about these videos, just do this first. And then they hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between, let's say, going to a gym on your own, which is totally cool. A lot of people do that well. And just hiring a personal trainer, not even having to think about it. Because then the personal trainer just does all their diet plans and everything. So here's the advice I would give. Here's the balance that I think is useful here. I call it the 10% rule. So the 10% rule means 10% of whatever you make. I don't care if it's $30,000 a year, $70,000 a year. Maybe for some of you listening to this, it might even be $500,000 a year. I would say always invest 10% of that back into you, because that's the best investment you can ever make. So I'll give you an example with me. The best $300 I've spent in my life was going to a conference in Columbus. This is not like a $30 million investment. It was like a $300 thing. Instead of going to Cuba or something, I just went to Columbus to go meet my favorite podcaster in his community. And I met my business partner there. And I made way more than $300 working with him and being partners with him. So was that $300 well spent? And by the way, even when I went there, I stayed in like a $20 a day Airbnb because I was still broke. But I was spending 10% of my money on just personal development, things like that. And I think that's a great mindset for people to have, whether that's investing in a health plan, whether that's investing in, I don't know, like a marathon, a little like a personal trainer, a karate class. Like think about that 10% rule, and I think you'll get a lot more results than most people do.
That's true.
I love that.
Definitely universal advice too, as far as the gym or even with your savings or investments. So I love that.
And the way I see it is just give yourself, whatever you work for, give yourself 10% of that back to yourself. I mean, you can look at it as money, but to me, it's just the money for the actions of, so 10% of that will definitely go back into your life, which will multiply, later on and be far more bountiful than what you initially put in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would, like I said, from season 1 to season 10, your clients have probably been more diverse than season 2, season 3 type of thing. What would you say would be a common weakness that you've observed throughout all the diverse set of clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, for sure, man. I would say the biggest one by far is really lack of consistency. So there's a great quote by Alex Hormozy, and the quote is, "It's not about doing the extraordinary thing, but rather the ordinary thing for an extraordinarily long period of time."
Wow.
So it's not about doing the extraordinary thing. It's about doing the ordinary thing for an extraordinarily long period of time. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we take the random word exercise, which is the first exercise I teach people. Take a random word like soapbox, like master, like trophy case, like wife, and you create random presentations out of thin air. So there's 2 reasons why this exercise is effective, guys. The first one is because it helps you deal with uncertainty, because life is filled with it. Like, let's say you jump into a conversation with somebody you don't know. You're like, okay, shit, like, I don't know how this conversation is going to go. So the random word exercise just helps you deal with uncertainty. Because if you know how to talk about tacos, well, you could talk about anything. That's one. The second reason is if you could make sense out of nonsense, you could make sense out of anything. And that's really the magic of the random word. But here's the catch, team. The catch is a lot of people listen to that tip and go, oh, that's cool. Like, I pick fruit cup and I give a presentation. So they'll think about it. They'll go, oh, like, you guys brought a cool Indian guy here to talk about communication. He's got a great tip here. But the problem is they're not booking 5 minutes in their calendar every day to actually do the exercise. That's really where you get the magic, because the best way to speak is really to speak.
Yeah. It goes back to, I feel like that's a universal flaw that everyone has throughout all walks of life as well, being inconsistent with anything. And that reminds me of that Bruce Lee quote that goes, "I fear the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once." He says, no, I fear not the man that has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. So it's interesting because that philosophy, I feel like, is finally getting its spotlight. There's this new philosophy as far as working out goes where you don't max out every workout sessions. Rather, you do a weight that's comfortable so that you're able to do those reps and do those sets every day instead of, going hard and maxing out and having to take days off. Because the person in the gym that's working out every day will have gone through more reps than the person who's needing to take days off and taking breaks. So that's profound advice. I feel like that is also universal throughout all walks of life. So it's pretty cool.
For sure. Yeah, you're talking about Faraz
there.
Zarabi. Yeah.
Yeah, Faraz Zarabi, exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did see that video and that post about the random word exercise. Is that what it's called?
You got it.
Yeah. So it's funny because Andrew and we're really into rap and freestyle rapping. So I feel like that's something that we've worked on. And it's funny because I feel like that, I tell Danny this all the time. I feel like anything you do is how you do everything. So I feel like if you work on something that usually translates into other aspects of life. So I feel like the freestyle rapping and being able to just, anytime go, whatever beat, go ahead. I feel like that helps out your skills socially as well. Would you say that being aware of social skills, would you say that freestyle rappers have an edge as far as holding the presence verbally? I mean, mic or no mic?
I would agree with that. I actually practice rapping myself. I'm not that great at it. And
Oh,
another fun
shit.
fact you guys probably don't know about.
Drop the beats.
No, remember, I caveated it with I'm not actually that great at it. I actually have a video on YouTube just on rappers and what I learned from, because my best friend is a pretty well known rapper in Montreal. But yeah, so that's one piece. So I agree, and we can break that down a little bit. The other fun fact about me, you guys probably don't know, is I actually can karaoke in 8 different languages. Once again,
wow.
not
God,
well.
wow.
Yeah. But, so I've definitely been a mad scientist in communication.
What are the 8 languages?
So I speak 3 fluently: English, French, Tamil. And then in addition to those 3, I karaoke in 5 other ones that I don't understand. Right.
Oh,
but
okay.
I can just pronounce well. So Korean, Japanese, Mandarin, Hindi, and Spanish. Yeah, those are the other. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I get. Oh, wow.
That's pretty wild.
That's
So-
wild, yeah.
Yeah, so for rapping, I would say the big thing is knowing how to pronounce words at a fast pace. That's the biggest lesson that I got from rappers. So whenever I'm practicing other people's kind of lyrics, it really helps your articulation. So if I speak really, really, really fast, you can still understand everything that I'm saying because I've practiced that rapping. Whereas if you're not good at enunciating words, well, you always miss the beat. So that's one. And then the karaoke thing helps too. If you could pronounce words you don't understand, it's really easy to pronunciate and enunciate words in English.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I mean, being a person that does practice that, I used to listen to the fast rappers pull up their lyrics and try to, rap the same cadence as them. And it's a mix of breath control and your coordination, your tongue coordination. And for me, sometimes catching up, I lack more at the tongue coordination area. Is there a way to speed up that neurotic connection, or is it just repetition? Is that how you get better at that?
I wouldn't say I'm a freestyle expert, but I think what I would say, this is what I did to get better, is I would just rap at different paces. So I started with a slower rap that's really easy, and then I would kind of speed it up to like an Eminem, right? But like Drake's usually pretty slow if you pick the right song. So I think the key is just you go slow and you build up your pacing over time. I think that would be the advice I would give. Though people should take that with a grain of salt, because I definitely don't have a professional career in
What's your
rap.
favorite Drake song?
What's my favorite Drake song? I've never been asked that on a podcast. What is my favorite Drake song? I don't even know. I have to look at my phone. What is my favorite Drake song? I think it's Mia.
Is that a new one?
What?
Yeah,
Is that new?
it's like a Spanish one. He like raps in Spanish. But it came out last year. It's not that
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
I
familiar with
feel
that.
like I might know
Yeah.
that.
Well, even a better question: who would be your top 5 rappers of all time?
It's getting
Top
real
5
right now.
rappers of all time? My goodness, dude. I mean, my God, my opinion is definitely worth a forget grain of salt. This is a grain of sand, man. This is like- You're asking me what my top 5 are?
just to
I
get
literally-
a taste of your flavor of music,
I mean, my God, most of my music is like Afrobeat, Justin Bieber, a bunch of Korean guys. So I think top 5 rappers. I really like Belly. He had a pretty good freestyle a few years ago that a lot of people don't know. Drake, obviously, he's pretty good. Eminem, I like a lot.
Yep.
The other ones, I listen to a lot of Korean rappers too. Bobby's really good too. And then the Swings is really good too. He's more on the Korean side though.
Man, have you guys heard of that new? I think this guy primarily just does freestyle rap.
Harry Mack?
Yes,
Yeah, he's killing it.
that guy is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I have this thing about anytime someone shows me, I'll almost like a hipster mentality where I'll hate on it a little bit first, and then once it's died down, I'll go look into it. So when people show me Harry Mack, guy's whack, man. Come on. But then looking into him now, that guy is incredible. I mean, does that impress you as a social skill observer? I mean, like, it seems like that guy's gears are just turning, and those gears just turn smoothly. It feels like there's never a kink or any stutter into the functionality of how he's observing and being ready for what to say next, right?
For sure. Yeah, Harry Mack is on a whole other level. Like I think he's been freestyle. I listened to a podcast with him and a guy named Lewis Howes like a few months ago. I think he's been free.
I like him.
Yeah, he's really good. That's
Sorry.
actually the event I was talking about, the Columbus one. So I go to his event every year. And I listened to it, and he's been freestyle since he was like 10 or something. So that's all he's done. He might have written music for a little bit, but he just wanted to be a freestyle rapper. Yeah, I listen to him every week too. He's always on my TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm always following him. But yeah, super impressive. I mean, my God. He's just taking 3 words and just creating rap out of thin air, and you're just like, he even had one TikTok that you guys should check out where some guy paid him to break down what he's doing. So he was breaking down his own rap while he was rapping. It was so meta. I was like, what's going on? He's like, this is a syllable, but the syllable is this. And I was just like, what the?
That's the craziest thing I ever heard. Wow.
That's crazy. It was wild.
What was impressive to me is I saw a segment where he was on a radio show with, I think it was Kendrick Lamar. And I mean, usually I don't care how talented you are when you come across someone at that caliber like Kendrick Lamar, there's some nerves sometimes, you know, especially when it comes to a skill set like freestyle rapping, where I feel like you have to be on your P's and Q's. But man, so this exercise was there was an instrumental playing, but they gave Kendrick Lamar the power of throwing out words, you know. So Kendrick Lamar would throw out words, you know, he threw out simple words to start, and Harry Mack does Harry Mack, you know, just does his thing, fucking flips it up, does his spin and catches it. And then Kendrick Lamar starts, you know, turning up the difficulty of the words that he's throwing out. And Harry Mack does his thing flawlessly, like without a stutter in his step. And even Kendrick Lamar, you could tell that it wasn't even just for the camera type of thing. He looked genuinely impressed. So that guy, if you guys, Andrew, if you haven't heard of Harry,
no, this is the first time I heard of him.
Impressive.
Yeah,
check it out now.
I need to watch that video too.
Yeah, I'll send it over, man. It's impressive. As far as going back to social skills, 8 languages. God damn. Was English your first language?
And just to be clear, guys, I don't speak 8 languages, right? So I speak 3, which is still not bad, right? Because most people speak 1, right? Yeah, but so the other 5 is more like I'm really into anime, so I'd watch a lot of like anime, and that's how I learned Japanese. Like I would just start singing in Japanese for fun, and then it kind of meshed over to Korean and then Spanish and all that stuff. So that's why I can karaoke. But once again, I don't sing really well. It's just something I do for fun. I realized later it helped me a lot with pronouncing words and whatnot.
The worst thing that I tried to watch an anime, or I tried to download an anime, but I only speak English, so I tried to download an anime, and then the subtitles were in Spanish, so I totally didn't know what was going on. Like, I guess I have to use these context clues.
Just go on Crunchyroll, man. What are you doing?
What am I supposed to do now? Some hair colors I've never seen. What do I do?
Is overstimulated. Just have a seizure.
What's going on?
Oh no. So you touched on you know, a fancy watch sometimes can be used by people, and you know, a fancy car can be used by people in a social setting to convey different things. And I would say sometimes have an edge. I would call it more special effects, right? Is there any benefit to that? Is that something that you advise some of your clients when it comes to certain special cases as far as like business ventures go?
To like buy expensive watches and stuff?
You know, like roll in there like you got to roll in there like a boss, sell the image, you know what I mean? And then not just that, be able to deliver with your presentation as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, man. Not yet so far in my career. I think the reason is because it's not hard to look the part without a lot of money. Like I'll give an example, right? Like my YouTube videos, right? It looks like I'm worth a bunch of $1 million or something. But what people don't know is like my production team is my best friend.
Yeah.
Like his friend just owns the suit shop. We just happen to record there, and he switches the angles. And dude, that suit that I wear on that channel, I bought that suit in 2016 for $300. You know what I mean? And my shirt is like $20. Even now, like I don't really. The only thing that's expensive here is probably the kidney that somebody could probably sell for like $1 million, and like my and like my headset, which is like $200-300. But so I think here's the reason I never advise it, because one, there's a better opportunity cost with that money. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a Rolly is like 40-50. So what I tell people is like, why don't you just invest in a mastermind with a bunch of millionaires? It's the same price. But everyone's going to be in the same room. And then when you're in that room, nobody cares if you wear a nice watch or anything, because they know you're serious because you spent that amount of money. So they respect you. You can go in with a hoodie and people can go, oh, that guy's like really good. So I just think there's better ways to spend the cash. Unless you're like a watch dealer or like you're a diamond dealer or something like that. But I've never coached any one of those types of people. So that's what I would say.
I guess I'm thinking more as far as, because that would appeal more to a shallow-minded audience, I guess, right?
Correct.
And I guess in those business settings, those people aren't really fooled by those kind of theatrics at that point or in that set stage. Well, that goes into this segue then. First impressions. What is there a general advice you give to people as far as making a good first impression? What I would say for first impressions, it always starts with, we need to learn how to practice networking and building relationships with people we already like, because that's the way we want to learn. So I'll give you my textbook exercises here. Number 1, make a list of all of the questions that you wished other people asked you. So like for me, if you meet me in person, you ask me about the weather, like I won't care. I'll be like, dude, just look outside. Like this is the weather. Like, it's right there. It doesn't matter. So what are the questions that I want to ask other people that I wish people asked me? Hey, like on the street, let's say, like, what's your passion? What's your vision? What are you dreaming about? What are you excited about? What's the biggest lesson you learned about yourself this year? Like, that's the type of stuff I'm into, like really philosophical, really introspective. So I just ask that to other people. So what happens is when you ask these questions, 2 things happen. Either the person is like, what? And they run away, which means like you don't need to talk to them because life is short. And then the other type, they go, shit, like, where have you been my whole life? Let's have a conversation. And then they ask me the same questions back. That's the first thing. The second thing that I recommend you guys do is make a list called the value list, where you rank the top 5 relationships in your network, but you don't rank them by money or status or fame. You rank them by generosity. How much are they pouring into you? How much do they really care about you? And all you have to do is go to those 5 people. I heard a pen. I think someone's doing their value list right now. So it's funny. So then what you do is you make a list of these 5 people, and then you spend 80% of your energy just on helping those 5 people. Because you know what happens, guys, is when you help those 5 people, you just have to ask one question. Hey, can I meet your friends? And they go, yeah, of course you can meet my friends. And that's actually how I network. So besides doing podcasts with people like yourselves, other than that, like a lot of my one-on-one meetings, it's not a podcast. I usually don't take it unless it's an intro from somebody that I know. And the reason is because if you meet, let's say, 100 people every year, which is a lot for most people, and we live for 50 more years, you only get to talk to 5,000 people out of like billions of people in the world. So the value list allows you to skip the first impression, except for the people you care about. And then you get better at building that muscle and having deeper conversations. And then you can apply it to others. Like, for example, if this was my first show, I would have freaked out because I would have gone on the show and be like, holy shit, why does this guy have a toque on? Like, why does he have a mask? Is he going to rob me? Right? But when you do like when you done it as many times as I have, dude, I've been on shows way like crazy. You guys are awesome, but I meant like some people have been like absolutely nuts. So like I was on the show called Weirdos.tv. That was super funny. But anyways, so that's the point that I want to drive here. Over-invest in the people you already like. A lot of people just go from event to event and they try and meet new people instead of just double downing on the people they already like. Because it's rare for us to like someone in general. And then when we do that, we just have them make introductions to our friends, and that's how we win the game of life. That's awesome. That makes me think of that book by Dale Carnegie you mentioned, How to win friends and influence people. Because I think the first chapter of that was have a genuine interest in people, right? And so starting with that value list, sometimes also in the dating world, if you put on a fake character, you attract the wrong types of people. You know what I mean? So when it comes to the theatrics, the special effects, like putting on the fancy watch that you probably couldn't afford, you attract certain people that you probably wouldn't have magnetized towards you if you just were doing you, right? Just being genuinely you. So with that 5 value list or that value list that you mentioned, you build genuine interest with people that are already in your circle. So that way you kind of manifest people that should be helping you get to where you need to go, right?
1000%.
So that's pretty interesting. Are there any other books? I mean, that's obviously a book that you've read, but are there any other books that you say that have shifted your paradigms as far as how you look into this field?
For sure.
So to speak?
I would say my favorite book of all time is Thirst by Scott Harrison. Thirst by Scott Harrison. So Scott Harrison is the CEO of Charity Water. It's a nonprofit he started to help the world get access to clean water. The reason I love Scott's work is I think the guy's one of the best storytellers on the planet. He went from being a nightclub promoter in New York City, of all things, to building the largest water charity in America. I think he's raised almost like $700 million at this point for clean water. The guy's super impressive. I love his work. I think his book is absolutely game-changing. There's a great quote as well in the book that I always like to share. And the quote is, "The goal is not to live forever, but rather create something that will." And that quote always stuck with me.
That's awesome. Super profound. Also reminds me of that parable of, I mean, it doesn't need to be Jesus, but God giving gifts to 3 different men. And, you know, one person just kind of left that gift to the side, didn't really appreciate it. Another person nurtured it and was able to multiply that gift. And another person did something else with that. And it's one of those things of, you know, you're given these things and sometimes you can appreciate it, but if you do really see what you have and appreciate it, paid attention to it, you know, you maximize the benefits that it brings to you and the benefits that you could potentially bring to them too. So I love that advice. As far as going back to making the first impression with the wrong people, sometimes you have no choice as far as job interviews, right? And I mean, skipping, I know one of our pointers is dating, but with dating, I mean, there's, you know, that pickup artist community. We could go into that because that's a whole fucking crazy topic of conversation. But that school of thought usually preaches portraying a certain character. But like we said, you portray a certain character, you throw a certain kind of bait, you catch certain kind of fish, right? But as far as a job interview, that's a different type of setting. How would you say you should approach a job interview to make a good first impression, to set you apart from all the other clients? And do those theatrics, special effects type of accessories matter then, as far as, let's say you go to a medical type of interview and you have, I don't know, some sort of Apple Watch that could tell, like, you know, certain heart rates. I don't know. Like, is there any kind of advice that you give, different advice that you give for people with job interviews?
For sure, man. I would say you're definitely right. There's definitely some situations where we have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
We have to change the way that we appear to achieve a specific outcome. And obviously, it's a muscle we build up over time. Like the relationship building strategy I gave you, that's easy. Everyone can do it. But what happens is when you do that more, you're interacting with more people in general. You're motivated, so you want to do it more because you're meeting new friends, you're having a lot of fun, and you're talking to your friends' friends. So it's actually super efficient. So what happens after that What happens is you get better prepared for situations that you don't expect. You get better prepared for situations where you're like, oh my God, like, how do I deal with this? Job interviews is one of them. Absolutely. So in those types of situations, you want to implement what's exercise 2, which is called the question drill, where we get asked questions all the time, right? But a lot of us are reactive to those questions. We don't come prepared. So what you want to do with job interviews is every single day for 5 minutes, you want to open a commonly asked interview question. You just want to answer it for 5 minutes. And you want to do that every single day. But if you do that every single day, guys, 5 minutes a day for a year, you'll have answered 365 questions about any job interview. So you'll be a lot more calm and have a lot less anxiety, because most candidates who get interviewed, they don't answer 365 questions to prep. But if you do that little by little every single day, you'll definitely be successful, no doubt.
You know, one thing, I'm in the job market right now. And I've been interviewing left and right. I mean, even in one company, I've done 4 interviews already, hoping to get that call. It was just last week. But some of the things you mentioned, absolutely, I think I've carried that across the many different interviews. It's kind of like the meme that I saw is like, oh, what's your experience looking like? Oh, this is my 15th interview. And so that's kind of how I've taken it, where in my first couple, I was I wouldn't say nervous, but yes, there was definitely some nerves and anxiety there, that when they would ask me a specific question, it would take me a little bit longer to answer. But as time has gone on, and I've gained that experience in the interviews already, when there's a specific question that they ask, it's like I already have a go-to answer already. And what that does, it makes you look like, okay, this guy, he's sharp, he knows how to answer. But I mean, all it is just repeating. I've repeated myself so many times already that, shoot, this is the 12th time I'm answering this question. I just answer it direct, very confident, because again, it's not the first time I've said it. And same thing, it's just learn from my mistakes from the prior and carry it on over. And I think that it's helped me out. Have I gotten the job yet? No, not yet, but I can see the difference in the interviews, where it's definitely far more engaging, where instead of in the first ones, they would just kind of ask me questions and I'd answer, and that was the end of it. Now it's more, they ask me questions and I answer, but while I'm answering, I go ahead and bounce back a question. So it has become more of a conversation, something more natural. And I mean, I'm just kind of giving tips out, I guess, too. But I mean, it's, you just get better with it along the way. That's the best thing I can say. So, yeah.
Also, I heard this thing saying, whoever asks the questions controls the conversation. And
right.
With that said, you shouldn't be sharp questioning everything and kind of have that interrogative aura or vibe. It's more of the person I was listening to mentioned it and described it more as a dance, like, pay attention to the rhythm of the conversation. So, you ask somebody a question like, oh, hey, how was your day? They tell you, oh, I woke up late, but luckily there wasn't traffic and my favorite song was on. So it wasn't that bad. And then from there, it's kind of like active listening. You move based on their move. It's more of a reactive instead of a proactive type of thing. So based on that conversation, oh, what song was on? Oh, this song by Justin Bieber, Where Are You Now, which is a great song.
I agree.
Yeah. So it becomes more of a dance, a more friendly rhythm instead of how was your day? What you doing? What you do today? Instead of an interrogative, more aggressive tone, I would say. Pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
One question, Brenden, and I think Jarizi just kind of led into it. How can you make a conversation so it's not interrogation when you're asking questions? And I guess this kind of could fall into dating. When we're asking the questions, how do we make it so it's not like an interrogation and just make it seem more like a conversation? You know what I mean? Where the other person doesn't feel like they're just answering questions, rather they're engaged in a conversation.
Like 21 questions.
Yeah.
So I would say that the context would be different in both. So let's start with job interviews. We'll get that out of the way, and then we'll jump into the crux of the conversation, what seems to be dating. So
Yeah, right.
So for conversations, what I would say for job interviews, let me give the most important tip, Danny, which is, and Jerizi and Andrew, which is that if you want to succeed in job interviews, you actually want to team up with people who are also looking for jobs, especially if you can't afford a coach. So I'll tell you guys the story. When I was in college, I was in my last semester of university, and my goal is to work in a management consulting job. That was my dream. So what did I do? I paired up with 4 other people who also wanted the same job as me or something similar. So that sounds a bit weird. It's like, Brenden, why would you pair up with people who want the same job? Aren't they your competition? That's how most people think. And that mentality is wrong, because when you have 4 people who want the same thing as you and you all work together, you actually become way better as a unit than any individual candidate. So let's say me and Danny are on the same team. I'm looking at your cover letter. I'm interviewing you. You're interviewing me. We're helping each other. And let's assume Danny gets the job and I don't. I still win. Why is that? Because who's the first person Danny's going to refer when they're looking for the next person?
It'd be you.
They're going to refer me. Danny's not going to refer some schmuck on the street. He's going to refer the person who stayed up all night reviewing his cover letter for free and helping him. That's why my go-to advice is always to team up with other smart people. That's what I did in college, and we all got great jobs out of it, and it worked just fine.
I don't think you know Danny, man. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
Nah, we good. We good.
So yeah, that's what I would say through the job interviews. That's the most important thing. The second piece is really understanding that this is a numbers game, right? So there's I remember when I did consult, I think I applied to all 15 of them. I got 3 interviews out of the 15, and then out of the 3, I got 1 offer. So I was like, thank God I got a job. So that's how these things work. But the third thing is to have a cool set of questions at the end of the interview to make you sound really impressive. So I'll give you an example. Some of my go-to questions I like giving clients, I'll give you a couple. One of them is, if you were to list the goals that the ideal candidate would be able to deliver in 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months, what would you say those deliverables are?
I like that.
So that's a really good question I like. Another one is, what do you feel is the biggest mistake that most people at this level are making in the roles, and how can I work on this ahead of time to make sure that I can be more efficient in the role? Wow. So what you're doing is you're showing proactiveness. One other question I use a lot is, what's one example that you feel demonstrates the culture at this organization really well? So notice that through these questions, I'm showing a ton of interest, and the people are impressed. Or another question I like, what's the biggest misconception about this role that you feel people have when they start? So those are questions that really blow people's minds. So you can just copy paste. I'm not in the job market anymore, so you're not competing against me. So just use those. So yeah, that's what I would say for job interviews, guys. For dating, though, dating's a little bit different. And I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with this because clearly, as you can tell, I'm not the oldest cat in town. Right? So I'm all business. That's why I've had trouble getting a girlfriend. But I think the key is, I think the biggest thing that I've found with dating is asking questions that you give a shit about answering. Because if for me, if I'm going on a date and I'm just asking people how their day is, I just won't stomach through it. Another thing that I feel a lot of guys don't do, especially on apps, that I think is really effective, is get on calls with the girl first. Most of them really appreciate it because they don't want to be talking to some creep. It's actually really easy to differentiate yourself from most people just by being normal. So let's literally the second the second you match with somebody, just go just text them and just go, hey, you want to just get on a call, you want to just get on a quick call, and most people would be down for that, and that's just, you already win most of the time by doing that.
I agree. I mean, I'm kind of in in that phase of my life as well. So work
Podcast is for Danny.
and yes.
Get a job first though, because it helps.
Oh yeah. No, I know. That's been in the works. That's been in the works.
You don't know
but
Danny.
what
I'm just kidding.
Exactly. You don't know what you're gonna get. But yeah, the whole phone call. I mean, and again, it's because there's no. I personally, I don't want to say I think. I know there is no engagement when you are texting. It's just back and forth, kind of playing Tetris, or not Tetris, tennis, and so once you have that phone call, it's just more engaging. You hear the other person's voice. You could actually have, like I say, you can have a 15-minute conversation on the phone compared to a whole day via texting. And actually this time you're talking, you're engaging, and it's just far better. So I agree with you on that, Brenden, 150%.
Also, what you mentioned, which answered my question, and I guess it pertains to dating too, or maybe it doesn't. We can talk about that after. If you're in the market for a job, when you're around people who already have jobs, it's hard to maintain that hunger. So, like Danny said, going through a place where he's already on his 4th interview, but prior to that, he's gone through multiple interviews. So my question for you was going to be, how would you maintain a level of enthusiasm to be able to convey the impression that you want to present, right? But I guess that answers my question. If you're with somebody who's also going at it, you guys can kind of piggyback each other with as far as momentum goes, because no matter how long the journey is, if let's say you and Danny were going at it for a job, Brenden gets a job, you guys going at it, it's less of a jealousy type of relationship. For Danny, it's more of a, oh, hell yeah, Brenden, like, hopefully I can get one soon. You know what I mean? And even if I don't, you could probably refer me into your place. So
Exactly.
Even that even goes with dating. Like, I feel like, and we can, if you guys disagree with this, we could talk about this too. I feel like if you're a single person trying to get into the market, maybe it's better to be with other single people, right? Because now I'm thinking maybe it's better to be with someone who is in a relationship, because they could tell you more realistic advice instead of, I mean, I used to give crazy ass advice when I was single because that was in my testing phase. You know what I mean? But what do you guys say? You think in the dating world that it's different? You want to be with single people to maintain that hunger, or do you want to be with people who have already secured a partner to see what they're doing successfully?
Let's hear from Andrew. Andrew, what do you think?
Man,
we haven't heard from him in like 70 minutes.
Well, it's
been like 3 years.
It's tough for me to jump into any of these subjects because, one, I already got a job. that was hard. Two, already married. That was hard to get into. Two, I was not the greatest dater. And I received some of the... Did I mention I used to do like stand-up back in the day? I might even come back. But other than that, so that was a terrible preface to saying that all stand-ups are like broken people. I want maybe some of the bunch that I was, but yeah, I would hang out with these other single folks, and they would give me bad dating advice as well. They would just like looking back, some of the worst things ever. Like,
fucking bro, don't text her.
Just exactly along those lines. Like, oh, if she asks you to hang out,
show up late, bro.
Defer it. Just reject it for that event, and then date her the next time. I'm like, why would I have to do this? Though? Why would I have to feign liking this? It was a painful, just terrible, torturous road of making mistakes until I found the right until I made one right move. That's how I got through this dating thing. I'm glad that I'm married now because dating in general was just dog shit for me. It was just
It does suck.
awful. But I think that's just how it is now in 2022. So best of luck to you, Danny. I hope you can
Appreciate it.
Hope you can navigate. And I hope you can get better advice from our man here, Brenden.
It might be a little bit of both. Like, you might need to learn the principles from a person who's already married, but put yourself out there with the single friends to be able to be present, to be put into play. You know what I mean?
That makes way more sense. Yes.
Huh.
I get that part, but I think as you are always a product of your association. So if you're hanging out with single people that seem to be, in let's say a lot of situationships, well, then you're going to be a single person in a lot of situationships as well. So you are a product of. I see what you're saying, where maybe you have a little bit of both worlds, and yeah, because when you're in that environment, you want to be single. You don't want to be hanging out with a lot of people and that are probably in relationships and stuff, because it's like, well, you don't bring sand to the beach, kind of thing. And so
I was just thinking, what if those two people that Brenden was talking about that couldn't find jobs, what if they're just like stoners wondering why they couldn't find jobs because they failed a drug test? I don't know why, man.
But yeah, so that's my opinion on that part. Brenden, tell us, what do you think?
Tell us the ways.
We all answered. It's your turn.
Of course, guys. I mean, I'm always happy to share. Here's what I'll say. This is definitely the area of my life that I'm the poorest in out of all of them. Because I've sort of dated people, but I've never always been, I haven't been consistent at it. Let's put it that way. Because I've always used building my business as an excuse never to do it. Here's what I would say, though. Remember, guys, that at the end of the day, most relationships fail. Like, even if people get married, even if people have kids, we know the divorce rates, we know all this stuff. So what I would encourage first and foremost is really take your time, because most people will actually be a negative to the relationship, which is hard to kind of talk about, but I think that's just the truth. So I think the most important thing is to work on the other areas of life, which is health and money. Because if you can get that figured out, your level in society will increase and you'll have more options. Absolutely. Right? That's the first piece. The other piece I would say is, and this is a tip that Patrick Bet-David gave that I think is really good, just have your 3 non-negotiables. Like, what are the 3 things that you can't compromise on? And just use that as a metric. Because I feel a lot of guys, they're too emotional driven. They just see someone really attractive and they kind of lose all sense of logic. Versus just going like, oh, like if she's drinking a bottle of tequila in a night, yeah, probably not going to be the mother of my children. Probably not. So that gives you a lot more clarity as to how you should be spending your time. And that's the second piece. And then the third piece is realize that, like sales, it's a numbers game. But the best part about this numbers game is that you only need to optimize for one if that is your goal.
There we go.
Right. If that is your goal, you only need to optimize for one. And one thing I will say, if it's, especially since we're all men here, at least I think, I'm not sure what the mascot, but I'm assuming you're men.
We're good. We're good.
I'm assuming.
I'm still trying to figure it out. Apparently,
you're like binary. So you know what I would say is like, this is somebody told me this. I don't remember who. I think it was Rollo Tomasi. Maybe it was Tate. The guy who wrote The Rational Male, I think it was him. But basically, he said something along the lines of, well, one, there's more women than men in the U.S. So if you guys all live in the U.S., like that's already a win. A lot of people don't really realize that. So you have an advantage up front. That's one. The second thing that I would say is men age like wine. Right. So what that means is there's like a graph that Rollo shows is like over time, men become more attractive over time because they figure out their life. They make more money, they get healthier, they get more clarity in their life. And that's ultimately what women value. Right. But men, with the number one thing we value in women, which is unfortunate, but just reality, is physical attraction. And that depreciates over time. right?
Mhm.
So when a woman is between the ages of, let's say, 20 and 30, she's like the queen. She could date anyone that she wants, and she has all the power. But then as a woman becomes older, which is once again unfortunate, it's just the nature of biology. Once they pass like 35, like it's really hard to get somebody who's really successful to want to date that person because they want children. They want a woman who's fertile, so to speak. So what does that mean? That means take your time, guys. That's one of the advantage we have is like we can take 10 years to make this decision. And that's the game that I'm playing. So yeah, I got options. Yeah, I'm seeing some people, but I'm not locking anyone in just yet.
It's like the Leonardo DiCaprio effect.
Yeah, that's a little bit extreme.
Pretty much, right?
That's he's got a different rule. It's like if you pass 25, it's like over. But
that's funny because I like that non-negotiable. Me and my wife right now are watching fucking 90 Day Fiance.
Hey,
no. So your wife is
Lord.
watching 90 Day Fiance. That's one of the sacrifices.
Yeah. No, man. Honestly, the first 3 episodes, I was like, but turn this bullshit off. But I was hooked after the 4th and 5th episode. It's pretty entertaining.
That's good.
These guys, man. As far as the non-negotiables, you see these guys contemplating their non-negotiables and just being, fuck it. You know, she's hot. I'm not gonna get this again.
God,
It's so sad. Like a lot
It
of
is
guys
very
don't have
sad,
any
man.
self-worth. Like they got zero self. It's like guys. I mean, I never say this publicly, but I mean, might as well. It's like people are subscribed to OnlyFans. Like, what are you doing with your life? like, geez, like you could use that money elsewhere. It's like it's
Pornhub's
really
free,
sad.
bro.
Well, there's that, but I think it's more like I don't know. It's just so sad. Like it's so easy for us as men to get distracted, and that's why It's a great thing because if you're the guy who isn't subscribed to OnlyFans, you're already ahead of 90% of, which is so sad, but it's just true. Like it's so easy to stand out, and I think remembering that, especially on all of our journeys, especially me and Danny's journey to find the right person, like just don't let it stress you out.
Mm-hmm.
nah.
So going back to our talking points, and it still kind of goes around with this, as far as the job interview scenario and the dating scenario. Sometimes, you know, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, not knowing what kind of questions they're going to ask you, having difficulty answering, oh, what are your weaknesses? Or even with a girl being nervous to have eye-to-eye contact with a girl you didn't think you would be able to pull. You know what I mean? With that comes a lot of nerves and a lot of social tics, like and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? There's a bunch. I could go on with a bunch of them. Do you get a bunch of average non-business, non-nerd clients that go to you just to get rid of those tics? One movie that comes to mind is A King's Speech, right? He had a little nervous, what is it, like a nervous tick kind of? Are those kind of called tics?
Yeah, we call them filler words. And yeah, so I would say a lot of them don't really work with me per se because they're not willing to spend what I charge to fix that. So it's usually the high level people. But what I would say is there is a way to get rid of them, which is replacing our ums and ahs with pausing. So the reason we say filler words is because we want to buy time. So let's say you ask me a question. I'll go, wow. And then I'll answer it, right? Whereas what the best speakers do is they aren't smarter than us. They just buy time, but instead of saying they say nothing. So they pause and then they answer the question. So how does that now apply into the communication context? We need to replace our ums and ahs with silences. And the way you practice this is an exercise I teach called the endless gaze. So the endless gaze, not many people will do it, but I'll give it out anyways, is you stare into somebody's eyes for 3 minutes without talking. That's it. And what this does, it makes you feel really uncomfortable. So for you two, for Andrew and I forgot what your internet name was, but the guy with the mask on, Terezi. There you go. Thanks, man. So you two should like stare into your wife's eyes for 3 minutes straight. A lot of people who are married can't even pull this off with their significant other. And that really helps you pause, because if you can pause for 3 minutes, you can pause for 3 seconds, Teresi and team. And that's really the magic of doing that.
I might start laughing at her face if I look in her eyes for that long.
Yeah, my wife will look at me sometimes. I'll be like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" She's like, "Why are you wearing a mask?" I'm just
It's for the cave.
That's awesome, though. And you're right. Like, the average Joe wouldn't think to spend that much money or invest into their social skills as far as correcting the tics, as far as the ums and the ahs go. Something about me that I used to tell, because when my wife was in the job market too, looking for jobs, I would tell her, because a lot of the times during the 2020 pandemic, a lot of job interviews, unfortunately for some people, and we can talk about this later too, a lot of the job interviews were webcam interviews, right?
They were.
So a lot of the body language, special effects really get negated because it's more of it's a different setting. It's almost like back in the days when we transitioned from radio broadcast to TV. Being on TV, there were certain advantages compared to being on the radio, right? There was that one debate where the people who listen on the radio interpreted it a different way than the people who watched it. I think it was John F. Kennedy and was it Johnson? I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Nixon, right?
Tough Nation.
John F. Kennedy and Nixon.
I think so. You're probably right. But yeah, when it comes to that, how does it's interesting because you convey different things on when you're in person opposed to being in a webcam. And I told her, because their webcam now, I'm able to hear her job interviews, and instead of saying the filler words I tell her to say or replace it with a like you're thinking about what they're talking about and you're taking it in to give a conscious response, instead of or just being you go you think about it and then you give a response. Practicing that, is there a time limit to a pause? Because let's say you really don't know what the fuck to say, you know what I mean? And you're like, you're sitting there for like 2 minutes really trying to think. What advice did you give to someone who absolutely blanks out? Because it does happen in job interview settings.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of the replace ums with hum, so I love that. So I learned something new. That's some next level strategies for teaching. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Don't forget to add the chin,
Yeah, you gotta look away a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't use more than one though. It takes away the effect of it.
They're like, why should you work here? You're like, why should I work here? You're right. I probably shouldn't. You just leave. And then they're like, tell me about yourself. You're like, tell me about yourself.
Every question.
You put the pressure back onto them,
So yeah. So what I would say is, my philosophy, guys, is always, because I don't believe in the whole deep breathing, power posing, do somersaults, do it flip, do it, make pancakes and everything will be okay. Like, that's not my style.
I was wondering if that worked or not.
I mean, it could work for some people, but for me, the advice I preach is, if you do what's harder outside of the boardroom becomes a joke. So it's the same thing. If you do what's harder outside of the job interview, the interview becomes a joke. So whenever I do mock interviews with my clients, I'm a hard ass. Like, this is not, hey, like, I really like your shirt, let's do an interview. No, it's like, yeah, so I saw on your CV in 2019 you did this and you had a job skip. Why was that? So I just start like drilling a bunch of questions, like making them being the meanest interview, so that when they go in the real thing, they go, oh, like, they're actually really nice to me. This is really easy. So the mindset is always, you want to be really tough on people. so that when the job interview happens, it becomes easier. That's why there's a great quote by Tony Robbins, basically with the quote, and I'll butcher it a lot, is the whole idea that weak men, right, create hard times. Hard times, right, create strong men, and strong men create easy times, and easy times create weak men. Right?
Amen.
So what does that mean? That means now we've had an easy run. We've had the longest bull market in the history of forever. 14-year bull run. The market just does this, up and up and up. And now the market's finally crashing. So we're having a recession for the first time in 13 years. And most people are soft, guys. They're not ready for this. They're not ready for what's coming because the damage is just getting started. 23 is going to be a bust. A lot of more people are going to get laid off. The game's getting started. So the people who are really preparing for those moments, who are doing the hard shit, teaming up with each other, making Danny's life miserable in that mock interview so that when he goes in, he gets that job. The people who do that will win, and ultimately the people that don't will get kicked off the field.
That's awesome because, I had a conversation with Danny about this. It's better to go through the intensity, the hard work in a safe, controlled setting. Because when you're out there with someone that you don't really know that's talking that shit, you're kind of used to it already. You get rid of that first shock value of, why are you so mean to me? So it's one of those things that you don't appreciate until you're already hardened. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, this guy doesn't even bother me anymore.
It's kind of like, to make a funny analogy, to make this a little bit more lighthearted. It's kind of like Alex Hormozi said this. It's like a first date. So the first date's awkward, but if you have the phone call before, it's not that awkward because you already know them, right? So it's the same thing. But most people aren't willing to have the phone call, so they just go straight to the date, and then they get there and they're like, this is awkward. So and it kind of screws up in 10 minutes. And you want to leave, but you can't because you didn't drink the medicine early. Whereas same thing with job interviews. So the people who are drinking the medicine early, like Danny doing 15 interviews in like 3 weeks, you're drinking the medicine early, you're getting the head start. Whereas a lot of people are still chilling right now. They're like, yeah, there's nothing that's going to happen. Life is great. Yeah, 23 is not going to be fun for a lot of people. And that's the key. You got to drink the medicine early.
Mm-hmm. Man. So as far as calming the nerves, your advice, no woo-ha like meditative stuff. Just go ahead and pretty much expose yourself up until you get to the point to where you're desensitized from it, to where you're not so affected by it anymore.
That's a big part of it, Jerizi. And then the other part is an analogy I like to use, which is a boxing match analogy. So one side of the match is the fear, right? The anxiety, the stress, the why I shouldn't do it. And the other side of the ring is the message. Why is this important? Why do I need to get a job? Well, to get groceries. Like, why do I need to go on these dates? Well, to find someone to have children with or something. And the goal is never for the fear to leave the ring, guys. But rather make sure that when that bell rings and your fear and your message meet in the middle of that boxing match, that your message gets the knockout punch and wins every single time. So the fear will always be there, but it's a relationship we're managing. So think of me. I had a bunch of reasons why I shouldn't have started MasterTalk. I was 22 when I started the channel. A lot of my clients are double my age. I presented my whole life in a second language. I got a crooked left arm that's still crooked to this day because of a surgery I had when I was younger. And you would think that a communication expert has a bachelor's degree in communication at the very least. Yeah, I studied accounting, guys. Like literally the opposite of what you would think somebody like me should be doing. Why did I believe that I could be the person to be on this podcast? Why did I believe that I could be a communication coach? Because I literally had everything against me. Because I started in my mother's basement, which I still live, by the way. All my CEO clients know that, but I do it more than take care of her. But the point is I started my mom's basement on that couch with no money in my bank account, no expertise. Why did I think I could be MasterTalk? And the reason is simple. Because I didn't do it for my executives. I did it for the 15-year-old girl who can't afford a communication coach. What is she going to do on YouTube if she needs help? She's going to go to that 55-year-old man who has a PhD? No. She doesn't think that guy's cool. She's not going to relate to that person. So it's either I make the videos or nobody does. And that's really the perspective that I want to inculcate into people. It's not about getting rid of the fear. It's just about making sure your message is just a little bit more important than the fear, so you knock them out every single time.
I love that. It's kind of like
inspiring.
being bigger than the fear, right?
Yep.
I love that because I had a mentor I was talking to. When my mom passed away, I tried to have closure with that. And I did. But I felt like that closure was like a one-time thing that I would have to deal with. And I didn't think that that was something that would pop out, years later that I would have to constantly be dealing with. And so talking to my mentor about it, I asked him, what was that? I felt like I had mental and emotional closure already. How come these feelings are still coming up? And he said, those are things that you're going to have to learn to be comfortable with and also be ready to have to diffuse and handle over and over again. It's not something that's handled at a one-time basis. That's something that you kind of have to be used to taking care of and handling when it comes up. And a quote that he told me was, make friends with the fear, pretty much. Once you make friends with the fear doesn't sound or feel so intimidating, and you kind of have a different relationship going into it. You're aware of the fear is present. And when you're friends with something, it's different than when they're complete strangers and when they're intimidating, right? They're more approachable and you kind of understand and see it differently. When you see it differently, you kind of understand it more. You understand why you have this reaction towards this thing, because not everybody has that reactive or that fear. Nobody really shares the same fears. You know what I mean? Like, I might be scared of spiders, which I'm not. So don't think I'm fucking scared of spiders.
Okay, you are.
Yeah, I'm scared of rats, man.
I might be scared of spiders, and Danny isn't. You know what I mean? So like sometimes your fear is irrational to other people, and sometimes we make it bigger than it already is. So I do like that advice of using your message and almost using your purpose as the knockout punch in that boss ring. That's really profound.
I love that.
Go into our next segment or next segue topic, faking it till you make it. There's a lot of negative connotation to that quote, but I now see it more as a different way of saying just keep going until you're desensitized to it. That's kind of aligns with what you're saying, would you say? Or is faking it till you make it? I know a lot of self-help coaches preach it, but would you say that that's advice that you would tell some clients?
Yeah, I actually have a whole video about this. I actually very much disagree with the advice of fake it till you make it, and I'll tell you why, Terezi. The reason is because faking it till you make it implies in the sentence that you have to pretend to be somebody that you're not. And I think if you're a professional actor, if you're in theater, that's actually really good advice. But most human beings can actually do that sustainably. So for me, I actually change the quote. I say face it until you make it. Just face the truth of your life. Just do it until you make it work. Like the whole thing that let's bring it up again. The whole me living in my mother's basement. My top CEO clients who are all multimillionaires. They all know that I live in my mother's basement, but they don't care either because I get them the results. But notice how there's conviction in the way that I'm sharing that versus going, yeah, I'm really embarrassed to say that I live in my. So notice how it's like I'm not fake. It's like this is what I believe. This is the key. Or when I was younger, and people and I had a bunch of insecurity around this when I was younger. They would go like, "Who are you to coach me? You're like some 20-year-old kid. Like, what do you know? You got a broken left arm. You don't know, barely know English. Like what?" And you're making these videos. Like, who cares? And at the beginning, I was so insecure. But you know what my retort was? I would look back at them and say, "What's your excuse? If I'm doing all of this with all this insecurity, all these challenges, you're triple my age, you have way more experience than me, and you can't even post a video? Like, get out of here."
What now?
Right? And then they go like, "Oh, okay, I see it." So for me, it's never been about fake it till you make it. It's been around facing it until you make it. And I don't like the whole be yourself. I like being the best version of who you can be. Right. That's really the key.
Like
and
that.
if you focus on that, you will win. There's no doubt.
To put on what I've heard with the faking till you make it is kind of like how can I say? Kind of what they say with the law of attraction. It's like you might be speaking that into existence. I mean, you could probably say it in a mantra, and that's how you attract it. But that's the only way I've heard it. And to go back to what you said, Brenden, I think that's majority from what my mentor said. Yeah, my mentor taught me the same thing. Like obstacles along the way, you face it, and you overcome them. But to act as somebody else, and I don't know. It just never to fake it. You're right. It just never clicked to me ever to just not be myself and just act as somebody that I'm not.
For sure. And I love that all of you have mentors, first of all. This is amazing. It's great. So that's one piece. The other piece is let's draw a little difference here. What's the difference between fake it till you make it and LOA, right? The law of attraction. Because I'm a big believer in the law of attraction.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in this. So I think it's very important for us to draw the nuance here. So the nuance is, I think fake it till you make it is about being fake. Like you're pretending to be someone that you're not. You're just like, yeah, I did this and I did this and I did this. And it's you're giving a fake persona of who you are. LOA is very different though. LOA is saying, these are the things I'm trying to attract in my life. Like for me, I want to be the next Dale Carnegie. That's one of my dreams, right? That's what I want to do with my life. Am I that person today? No, I'm not that person today. But what LOA allows me to do is it allows me to do a couple of things. One, to help me dream bigger. Two, to help me understand, hey, why do I have what it takes to do this? And write a few reasons. But the third piece, which is the most important one, is to address the gap. That's what's missing in most people when they do LOA. And so they go like law of attraction, I'm going to try, and then I'm just going to sit here all day and just close my eyes. Like that's
no.
I need to meditate more.
Yeah, it's like that's stupid. So what I always like to say to people, my version of this is vision without execution is what I call delusion. Right?
Right.
So vision, you have the vision, but you don't have to execute. You're delusional. You're just delusion, right? So that's what I say. Like a vision minus execution equals delusion. But anyways, the point that I want to drive here is the third piece is going, okay, I want to be the next Dale Carnegie. What do I need to do to actually achieve that? Okay, I need to do A, B, and C. I need to write a New York Times bestseller. I need a guest on 10,000 podcasts to practice, prepare myself. And I need to build a massive coaching business so I have the financial means to do all that. Okay, so now what are the small action items that I can take to do that? So that's not me being fake. That's me going, okay, let me take a step back, hire a mentor, and figure out these things and make it actionable so that I can become that person because it's within my capacity to be that individual. So that's a very different connotation from, oh yeah, I'm just going to dream about this, and yeah, I'm going to be fake about it. Yeah, I'm like this, and I'm that, and I have a dropshipping company that's $7 million a year, blah, blah, blah. But you're not actually trying to be that person. You're just trying to fake being that person. It's not the same thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the word fake kind of drives it home, right? Because, like you said, it makes delusional. You're faking it until either they believe it or until you believe it, which eventually they end up believing it because it's kind of gets into pathological liar status almost, right? That faking it till you make it mentality. It's almost kind of crazy. But go into our next topic, conveying yourself clearly. We've noticed, especially at the start of our podcast, listening to our first episode compared to our 11th episode, sometimes with the fillers, I tell Danny this all the time because we listen to our old episodes and we critique it. Sometimes we say too much and the point is already conveyed, but it's almost diminished because added too much sauce on it, How would you say, and do you have a guideline as far as communicating and clearly conveying the message that you want to get across?
For sure. I think the best way to answer that is really reiteration. So iteration just means asking this question that I got from Kevin Systrom, which is, if you had to remove one part of my speech, what would you remove and why? and you want to keep asking that question over and over and over again. If you had to remove one thing from my answers today, what would you remove and why? And what I love about this question, Kevin Systems guy found it Instagram, by the way. The reason why I love this question is because it forces people to give you negative feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say for me, I've answered the same question probably on average at this point 200-300 times. So I'll give you an example. The first time I got the question, where does the fear of communication come from? My answer would probably be like, I don't know, Tokyo, Los Angeles, London. You tell me, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like, it's terrible. But my 100th time answering the question, okay, now I've thought about it. It's like, I know this question's coming. How do I answer this better? So the version of that question gets better over time, and it becomes more concise over time. So in other words, being concise is a spectrum, not a destination, in the sense that it's not like you're just concise now. It's more about going, no. We need to keep iterating until we learn the art, like building a muscle. And the best way to do this, frankly, is to give one presentation over and over again. So like I give a free training every 2 weeks. So that's how I do it. But it's always the same workshop. So if I do that 50, 60 times, the 60th time will be way more concise than the first one. And then you realize what that muscle is like. And then you can apply that muscle in every area of communication because you'll have that obsessiveness to go, I need to see more with less. I need to see more with less. And you'll get to the destination.
And that's obviously, I mean, what comes to mind is personally, sometimes when I write speeches, get them proofread. After the third proofreading from your partner, it's like, man, I thought it was already good. I wanted to keep that in there, like that gives it my signature of this speech. So obviously, at the end of the day, you would be the last of the editor, right? So if there is a part of that presentation that you want to keep in, despite X amount of people telling you should cut it out of there, if you really want it to be there, you could throw it in there and keep it, right? Or is that something where, hey man, if you've listened to 3 or 4 people and they've said cut it out, like you probably should cut it out?
I think it's really about interpretation, right? So ultimately you're correct. Like you are the final editor of your own message. But so that's why Patrick Collison, the founder of Stripe, says that the best founders, and I think that doesn't just apply to founders, I think that applies to everybody. The best human beings listen to everyone and ignore everyone all at the same time. What does that mean? So what that means is they listen to everyone's ideas, everyone's perspectives. Like I'm listening too, right? It's like, okay, what can I learn from these guys? But I'm also ignoring everyone at the same time, meaning with all of those points of view on the table, now I'm going to make the decision on what makes sense for me and my message. And it's the same thing in the context of speeches as well. Like go with your gut. Like for me, I like the random word exercise, the question drill, and the video message in that specific order. That's why I teach it that way. But nobody told me to teach it that way. I just felt that made the most sense after talking to so many people and getting so many different perspectives.
Yeah, that's beautiful because we had a conversation with one of our guests previously on the podcast about stoicism and how he said that if you have ideas, don't tell anybody because from there it gets manipulated by the criticism. And I told him sometimes even the compliments gets you tripped up, right? Sometimes you get too high off the yes men around you that it doesn't even really end up being your message. It becomes the collective message of the peer pressure, instead of you doing your authentic duty to live out your true self-expression.
You could also be too high off of those yeses, where you're missing out room for improvement because you just think, oh yeah, I got this. Everyone likes it. And you're just blind to where you can improve on.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's also like, I don't know. I told him I do this like weird mental thing to where if I get too many compliments, I'll start to like criticize myself just to kind of bring me back down. But at the latter, if I'm getting too many, I'm getting critiqued too much, I'll compliment myself to kind of just be level-headed and balanced. So I like that you pointed that out, man. And a lot of people don't really shed light on that aspect of it, and I feel like, I don't know, it probably was more prevalent back in the day too, but I feel like these days, or especially people in our age range, they get caught up in the yes man crowd and don't realize until the party is over that, damn, I lost my way midway to my journey. I almost had it, It's crazy. The next point we had was communicating through cultural walls. And what I might mean by that is, have you ever had clients that obviously come from a different country, are in a top position executively at work, but just need to get through the cultural language barrier, or not even a language barrier? They could convey themselves in English pretty well, but there's just a thick accent that they need to shave down a little bit. What kind of advice do you give those clients?
For sure, Jerezy. What I would say is accent is a mindset. That's what I teach people. Like, let's use Jack Ma as an example, right? The founder of Alibaba. The guy's a super thick Chinese accent, but nobody cares. And the reason nobody cares is because Jack Ma doesn't care. But if he got on a stage and he conveyed his ideas like this, "Hi, everybody, my name's Jack Ma, and I'm really sorry I have a thick accent," then that's what people will perceive. Oh, I guess he has a bad accent. So as speakers, we need to understand, guys, that we are mirrors. We project our own emotions onto the people that we speak to, right? To the people that we communicate with. So the question now is, what emotions do we choose to project? What do we actually want to show the people around us? And that's really the key. So how does this now play into mirroring? How this plays into having an accent is, pick any accent, doesn't matter which accent you have, and try and find someone really successful at communication who has the same accent as you. So if you're an Indian guy, look at Sundar Pichai from Alphabet. If you're a Chinese guy, go look at, I don't know, Jack Ma. And you'll notice that there's somebody out there who has a thick accent, but it still communicates just fine. So I'd say the answer, to keep it really simple, is don't worry too much about your accent. Focus more on getting rid of the objective truths. For example, the ums and ahs we can get better at, the smiling we can get better at, the eye contact we can get better at. And if we focus on those elements that are objective, that are easy to remove, we'll be a lot more comfortable on stage regardless of the accent that we have.
All right, I hear you, and I will apply it right now. Filipino.
Manny Pacquiao. He's the only guy I know
about that, bro.
Oh man, he he doesn't seem like he cares that he doesn't care that his accent is that thick. I mean, he still gives his speeches after every fight. So
I mean, he sings after the fight too, right? So he definitely doesn't give a fuck. That's funny.
Man, I can't think of any other. Who's a big Filipino guy with a Filipino accent as thick as Manny Pacquiao?
Definitely, he takes the cake as far as the most successful with the thickest accent for our people, right?
Yeah, I can't think
because
of
Jokoi he can speak English pretty well.
Yeah, Jokoi is pretty. I didn't even know he's. Oh yeah, he is Filipino. Yeah. He doesn't have an accent at all.
Not at all. Yeah, you're reaching if you say he has one. But
you can turn it on if he wants.
Yeah, he turns it on his mom. Yeah.
Well, that guy can speak English.
I gotta say, one thing I've noticed as far as accents go is I think accents can be a little easier to recognize when you speak several. I mean, even if you speak one other, two languages, but if you speak be 3 or 4, it just gets a little easier, I think. And I think that has to do because of how much you've, exposed yourself to different cultures and different people that speak differently. And that's why when you hear an accent, you don't think of it. You just really try to understand it as best as you can, but it's not like you're like, oh my God, this guy has a thick accent, I need to listen closely. It's more like you just pay attention and just grasp as much as you can.
Absolutely.
Also, Elon Musk has an accent, and he definitely doesn't care. So that is one thing. But I will say this, and this drive point with my other question. I love how you say accent is more of an attitude, right? How you approach it, how you take it. But with that, I mean, especially in the Western world, there's a lot of, oh, he has a funny accent. What did he say? Like, he talks like this.
Yeah, disrespect.
And sometimes, yeah, it's disrespectful. And sometimes as the speaker, you feel that, and that kind of trips you up. And I mean, being on the internet now, having content out there, I mean, we're starting to experience it too. Just getting people trying to, disrespect you. How do you ignore that? Or how do you coach someone to ignore that and stay with the program and, kind of stay with the message and stand their ground?
Yeah, Teresi. Here's the way I think about this. It's actually from Arnold Schwarzenegger. He said something really interesting. He said that if you want to impact 1 million lives, you need to get used to the idea that 10,000 people will hate your guts for no other reason than you being you.
Damn.
And I thought that was so powerful because it's so true. Like, let's say we take something like Justin Bieber. So many people hate Justin Bieber. But, like, nobody knows Justin Bieber. Like, they never had breakfast with him. They never actually met his family. They never actually talked to him for 30 minutes just to get to know him. But we make a judgment. Why is that? For various reasons. One, because we might be jealous of his success. That's one piece. Another piece might be, I'm someone who wasn't successful, so I'm going to let out that pain and that frustration onto other people's lives. But regardless of what the reason is, we need to keep in mind, and this is the dark side of success that I feel a lot of people don't talk enough about, is there is a cost to success. Nothing is free. And one of the costs is you need to deal with the fact that a lot of people will hate you. And that is just the price that you pay. So I think that the question now becomes, for content creators specifically, how badly do you want to create the impact that you want to make in the world? Like, how badly do you actually want to create that? So for me, I had a ton of hate when I started MasterTalk. My God. I was sending a ton of emails to university professors to share my YouTube videos because it's free content. I was like, well, I didn't have these communication tips when I was in university, so nobody else does. So if I share it with the professor, they'll just share it with their students. And yeah, a couple of them agreed with me, but the other 99% spat in my face. They're like, you're too young. This sucks. You suck. They're like super rude. And I was like, wow, you guys are in your 50s and you're being this rude to like a student. So that's the key, right? And I could have given up at that point, but my tenacity, the importance of my message was so great that it's like, shit, if I have to be on a podcast at 11:15 p.m., like, let's just do it. Like, because it's so important for me to really share that message out there. So I think that's the key in terms of how to cope with it, in terms of understanding the cost of impact. I mean, in terms of how to cope with it, I would say it starts from coming from a place of understanding, which is people who, like, for example, this is a quote that somebody sent a podcast that was brilliant. Has Michael Jordan ever written a negative review on Amazon? Right? It sounds ridiculous.
I think I saw one for some golf clubs, but I think it might have been a troll. I'm just kidding.
Right, but notice how like ridiculous that sounds?
That is true.
Like would Kobe Bryant sit down when he was alive anyways and just write a negative review about something? Like, no. Because winners don't care. They just focus on winning. And Kobe has a great quote too. He says, "Boos don't block dunks." It's just like, you can boo as much as you want. I'm still gonna dunk the fucking ball and win the game, and that's the mindset I wish most people had. Yeah, but it takes time.
Honestly, I feel like you have this comfortable confidence. Like some people have confidence. I feel like sometimes I feel like I have too aggressive confidence. Wouldn't you say, Danny?
10,000%.
We have this argument all the time, but you have a very like chill, comfortable confidence, man. And going back to like your clients being like I mentioned, I told you they're like big sharks in the pond, right? Like the CEOs, the executives, and dude, like you being a person, like you said, who lives in your mom's basement, like you have the confidence in knowing that. Yeah, but you don't know what the situation is. You know what I mean? Like, I know I'm confident in my living situation. And it's almost like you're bulletproof to any criticism from that. I would say more so because you anticipate it, and you anticipated it, and you've already prepared yourself for it. Where would you say you've honed and nurtured that confidence? Is it a book? Is it a mentor or an idol or role model you saw growing up?
For sure, Jerezy. So big part of that is exactly what you hit the nail on the head with, which is you want to anticipate those objections up front.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I learned, the hard way early in my life. Whereas now, when people ask me, I mean, I don't get those anymore because I just work with people I like now that I have leverage, because now the YouTube channel is doing well and everything, right? But at the beginning, it was more around, when people asked me, like, why, what, like, how old are you? Like, how are you able to quote? I just asked them back the question, why is that important to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I just asked them back the question, why is that important to you? And then they would answer something, and I go, okay, if you feel that way, why don't you come to one of my free trainings and see and make a judgment call? So I'm always prepared for that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one piece. The other piece, though, which isn't super easy to teach, but let me start the teachable part, which is what Dan Henry says. Competence leads to confidence. So at the beginning, I obviously had a ton of insecurity around executives. So for me, it wasn't about saying, like, I know more about them in their field. That's not the goal. But it's about saying, wait a second, this executive doesn't know what the random word exercise is, has never done it, doesn't know what a question drill is, hasn't done it, doesn't send video messages to their employees. And I've done the random word exercise 3,000 times in my career, done the question drill. I do question drills 100 times a week because I get asked so many questions on podcasts, right? And then the third one is, like, I've sent way more video messages in a week than most people send in a lifetime. So that's not, like, fake. That's like, I got points on the scoreboard that this executive, even if they're triple my age, doesn't have on the scoreboard. So for me, it's not about saying, hey, I'm smarter than you. That's not the point. The point is saying, hey, you're smarter than me in most areas of life. I acknowledge that, but not communication. For that one specific thing, I'm definitely one step ahead of you. So let me help you with that so you can accelerate your growth. That's one piece. The other piece is a quote by Ali Gadet, which is, if you help one person, the world will give you permission to help everyone else. So for me, it didn't start with executives. Obviously, I say that now to gloat about myself, but it started with 15-year-old girls and guys, right? Then I started coaching people my own age because that's what I was comfortable with. Then I went straight to CEO. Why is that? The reason is because a lot of my friends, guys, are technology CEOs. There's buddies of mine that I went to college with, but they're in their 20s. So I just started coaching them mostly for free. And then I would learn how CEOs think. And I just said, well, if I can coach a CEO, I can probably coach a 30-year-old engineer. Well, if I can coach a 30-year-old engineer, I could probably coach a 35-year-old manager. And I just aged up over time.
So based on your momentum, there was pretty much no looking back at the old Brenden, which would you say even now, would you get intimidated by any clients that you work with? I mean, now that you're kind of picky with your clients, right? Like you kind of have leverage. Are there some that you take on, like, oh shit, like, let's get in our A game for this one?
Dude, hundo. Crazy, yeah.
But that's good. That's like stress, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I signed a client. I mean, I can't talk about too much, but I signed a new client a few weeks ago. And dude, scared shitless. Like, I was on the strategy call, and literally in my head, I was like, why is she talking to me? I was like, why is...
Seems like she has it all together.
I was like... So I'm being, like, super calm on the call. I'm like, she's like, I work at this company. I'm in this position. And I was like, under that person? Like, you're, like, that person? So I'm listening, but I'm calm as a cucumber because I practice for these moments, right? Obviously, I teach it. So I'm just asking about her challenge. And I start coaching. I say, hey, you're not doing X, Y, Z. And she looks at me and she goes, you're absolutely right. I need to work on this. Can we start coaching? And I was like, absolutely. And I sent her an invoice. She paid it. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. Okay. We're in business. But I wouldn't have started with her. Like, if I started my career with her, I would have shit my pants on that strategy call. And I definitely wouldn't have closed the deal. She would have looked at me and been like, oh, this kid's really immature. Whereas I was talking with a higher level of maturity. Like at the end of that call, she says, I hope I'll get better. And I cut her off and I said, hope is not a strategy. We're not hoping in this program. We're getting results. And she goes, yes, sir, I'm in. That's
Perfect.
But I didn't have that. But guys, I didn't have that member team. I look young because I am. I'm 26. But I'm 7 years into this game.
Mhm.
I started coaching when I was 19. Right. So, but that's built over time. So when I'm 19, I don't know how to do that shit. But obviously now I'm a lot more competent.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what's up, man. I'm one to. It's kind of hard to put a poker face on. It depends how my mood is, but sometimes if you tell me something incredible, especially when it's client like that, I feel like it conveys more trust to be genuinely expressive. But in a business mindset, it wouldn't be, right? Like you kind of have to have a business face when having a business meeting. How do you? I'm trying to fish to see if there's any like spiritual exercises, meditative exercises, breathing techniques. Maybe you interlace with your coaching to develop a mental fortitude of being able to ignore some of the theatrics. Is there any of that you teach, or is it really just expose yourself until you're used to it?
For me, I think at the beginning, it's really about the reps, but it's doing it in a way that really reconditions the mind. So I'll give an example. Let's say we take the random word exercise, right? So at the first time, a lot of my clients, or really anybody listening to this, will go, a random word like phone, and I have to give a presentation on that? There's no way I can do that. But what happens is after they do it 5 times, I go, how do you feel? They go, oh, like this is, I don't like it. But I just asked them, didn't you say you couldn't do it once 5 minutes ago? And they go, oh. So I just asked them this question. What else is possible with your communication skills? And they go, oh, like I could probably do this 10 more times. I go, do it 10 more times. So they do it 10 more times. Now they're at 15 times. Whereas 30 minutes ago, they didn't even think they could do it once. And then I asked them again, what else is possible with their communication skills? They go, you know what? Let me do this 100 times. So they spend a few weeks and they do it 100 times. And then they get really good at it. Like walking. Like when we were babies, I love the analogy my coach gives me. When we were babies and we were learning how to walk and we fell on our butt, we didn't sit there and go, you know what? I'll never walk again. I'm done with this. I just give up. Then we just got up again. And then eventually we started walking. So same thing. So then they got the result. And then I said, what's next? And they go, let's do the question drill. Oh, I can't answer these questions. They answer one. They do go well. Then they do it every day. And then eventually I just keep hammering down this output. They see so much progress that eventually I ask them the question, what else is possible with communication skills? And they look at me dead in the eyes and they go, anything's possible. And then when they go there, then the whole mindset barrier shatters and then they skyrocket.
I guess that's the meta aspect I was looking for of. That's hella dope, man. I bet it's rewarding to see different people be aware of their potential. Not even that, break the ceiling of the potential that they thought that they were capable of, kind of broaden their horizon. I'm sure that kind of gives you a boost and gives you a momentum to keep doing what you're doing. So that's awesome, man. I really think that's a noble thing that you're doing.
Oh, thanks, bro. It's funny. I think the best coaches, because a lot of people are slimy in this field, but I think the real coaches, the real OGs, they see a potential in you that you don't see in yourself. Right. And I even do it subconsciously when I'm being interviewed. Like it's always on. Like, for example, Danny's talking about, his job being interviewed. And if you were my client, I would say something like, Danny, like, of course you're going to land a job. Like most people who are being interviewed, they don't even have a mentor. They're not super thoughtful. They're not on a podcast listening to books. They're not doing any of this stuff. So there's no doubt in my mind. So think bigger. Let's get like 5 job offers in the next 30 days. Right. So it's the whole like the coach, the person who's passionate about this will always see potential that people don't see in themselves. And that's definitely something that gets me awake all the time. But it's not for everyone. You have to really love people. Like, think about it. We've been at this for almost 2 hours, man. And I still have the same energy that I had 2 hours ago.
Right.
So you, in the same way you guys all do too, except Andrew kind of sleeping in the back there. But I think the key is
That's actually a screensaver now, man.
Right.
He slipped out a few hours ago.
Yeah. So, but I think, by the way, you two have like amazing wives. They're like totally fine with you guys just like chilling at like 11. I don't know what time it is
Yeah,
where you guys are. So you two married well, but I think the point is the key is really like you. This is why Rob Dyrdek, and I love this quote. He says, "Never follow your passion, always follow your energy." So whatever your energy drives you towards, do more of that. And I think what I realized in my 20s was the one thing that gave me the most energy was unlocking the potential in other people. Whether it's through me, because I can't coach everybody, but definitely through my YouTube or through podcasts like this, I can share that potential with a lot more people. And it definitely lights a fire up my ass every day.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, there's nothing like, I mean, one movie that comes to mind when I talk about, or when I think about like your social tendencies being an advantage in the business world is Wolf of Wall Street. Those guys, they had a script to go by, and then all of a sudden their clientele ended up becoming a whole nother level of clientele. But the thing about them is, they were selling bullshit to people. It wasn't, the take home was the money you were taking home. There wasn't really a rewarding aspect outside of the materialistic side of things. So that's kind of, I was digging the spiritual more aspect of that, and I feel like I got it. So that's pretty crazy, man. And I feel like most of your clients that go in there, let's say the people that went in there just, like Andrew was saying, just because it's a workshop that they had to attend. I feel like these things, like we mentioned, tough times make hard men, or hard men make tough men, or hard times make tough men, hard men. Hard times make tough men.
I always mess up the quote too, honestly.
That's funny. But yeah, you don't get to see the pros of that transformation until that new level of normal has finally set in. So I'm sure I speak for most of your clients when I say you're doing the Lord's work, man.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Doing the Lord's work.
Appreciate it, Teresa.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we wrapping up. Thank you so much for coming through. Man, you've been dropping a lot of gems and a lot of great quotes. Alex Hormozy, man, Tony Robbins, Carnegie. To end this podcast, what would you, upon leaving, what is one quote? If you were to leave our listeners with a quote,
final statement.
I would say this, Andrew and team. The quote is actually one I invented in my basement, and the quote is, "Be insane or be the same." If you want to be like everyone else, that's totally fine. But if you made it all the way to the end of this interview, 2 hours in the game, you're still listening to this, you probably want to do something important with your life. Meaning that people who generally do crazy things with their life are often crazy people. Don't you guys find it odd that I started a YouTube channel in my mother's basement, not on skits, not on pranks, not on music, but on executive communication tips? And then I went on to coach those executives of companies. A year later, I started making money, yet I still live in my mother's basement. I'm too scared to drive a car, even if I have a license. I karaoke in 8 different languages. I'm in the top 1% of listeners on Spotify for Justin Bieber, and I go clubbing with my family at least twice a year. How does any of this make any sense at all? And that, my friends, is the point. When every decision in your life makes sense to the only person that it should, which is you, you're probably making the right decisions. So be insane or be the same would be my closing thought.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Man.
I've never gotten applause before for saying that. So
Should we all stand up? Should we all do a standing ovation?
Oh, my word. Oh.
That was epic, man.
Man, we really do need that soundboard for like drink champs and just like dropping bombs and whatnot.
Or like a crowd cheering right now.
Yeah. We need that soundboard. That was amazing, man. Thank you so much for your time, Brenden. You want to plug any of your socials before you sign off?
For sure, guys. Thanks so much for having me. It's super fun. So 2 ways to keep in touch. The first one is the YouTube channel. Just go to MasterTalk in one word. You'll have access to a ton of free videos on how to speak. And the second way to keep in touch is go to my free workshop. I do a free communication workshop over Zoom every 2 weeks. Everyone's invited. You don't have to be an executive. You can be a kid. It doesn't matter. And if you want to jump in on that, go to rockstarcommunicator.com.
All right, man.
Rockstarcommunicator.com right there.
Great. Don't forget to check him out too, people. He's on Instagram, Master Your Talk. Has a lot of information there, as well as to the links to his YouTube and other resources.
Brenden, don't forget us when you become the next Dale Carnegie, man.
Guys, it's hard to forget you guys.
Yeah.
You need a software developer.
Oh, hold on. Before we sign off, just to drive this home, drop the beat, Andrew.
You can't leave it on a freestyle. What do you think? Just turn on one beat. Give us 16 bars.
Give us something spicy.
Let's hear the master verse. All right, guys, there you have it. Thanks for listening. Or if you're watching, thanks for watching. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right.
Good one. Take care.
See ya. Okay.